the sea was eerily calm off the coast of Normandy in northern France. But beneath this calm, the largest naval force in history was in motion. At that dawn, the soldiers didn't know if they would live to see the full sunrise. But they knew one thing, that this moment would determine the fate of the world. That day would later be known as D-Day, and become the turning point of World War II. Chapter 1. Europe under occupation. 1 o'clock. Since 1940, most of Western Europe had been under the control of Nazi Germany, led by Adolf Hitler. France fell with astonishing speed. Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, all fell under Nazi rule. Britain held out, but remained isolated across the English Channel. And in the east, the Soviet Union was fighting bloody battles against the German forces. The Allies needed to open a new Western front, a front to relieve pressure on the east, and begin the liberation of Europe. But the problem was clear: how could they cross a sea protected by the strongest defenses in the world? Chapter 2. Planning the largest operation in history. 230 Secret planning began in 1943. The operation's codename was Operation Overlord. The Allied Supreme Command was led by U.S. General Dwight Eisenhower. Alongside him were prominent commanders such as Bernard Montgomery. More than 5,000 ships, 11,000 aircraft, 156,000 troops on the first day alone. But before the landings, there was an element more important than weapons: deception. The Allies launched a massive disinformation campaign to convince the Germans that the attack would be in the Pas-de-Calais region, not Normandy. They created fake tanks, fake camps, and even a phantom army under the command of U.S. General George Patton. The plan worked. The German command remained hesitant to move its main forces to Normandy, even after the landings had begun. Chapter 3. The night before the storm. 4 o'clock on the night of June 5, 1944, the weather was terrible. The sea was rough, and the winds were strong. Eisenhower almost postponed the operation. But weather experts gave him a brief window of improvement. He made his famous decision: let's go. At that moment, the largest naval fleet in history moved toward the French beaches. In the sky, thousands of paratroopers jumped behind enemy lines to secure bridges and roads. Many landed in the wrong places. Some landed right in the middle of German forces. But the element of surprise began to work in the Allies' favor. Chapter 4. Dawn and blood. 5:30. With the first light of June 6, the landing ships approached the shore. There were 5 main beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, Sword. The bloodiest was Omaha Beach. When the landing craft opened their hatches, they were met with a hail of bullets. German machine guns were positioned on the high ground. Mines were planted everywhere. The sea itself was littered with metal obstacles. Hundreds of soldiers fell in the first few minutes alone. Some units lost more than half their men in a single hour. But despite this, they did not retreat. The surviving soldiers began to advance slowly, concealed behind barricades, using grenades to destroy the gun emplacements. By midday, the tide began to turn in favor of the Allies. Chapter 5. German resistance and confusion. 7:30. The German command had not expected this to be the main assault. Some of the commanders were on leave. The armored forces did not move immediately because they believed it was a diversionary attack. Hitler himself wasn't roused in the early hours. That delay was crucial. If the German tanks had moved immediately, history might have been different. But by the time they realized this was the real offensive, the Allies had already established their foothold. Chapter 6. The beginning of the end. 8:30. In the following days, hundreds of thousands of troops and equipment were landed. Normandy became a fierce battleground that raged for weeks. But the advance continued. In August 1944, Paris was liberated. From there, the troops began their advance into Germany itself. Less than a year later, in May 1945, Nazi Germany formally surrendered. The Normandy landings didn't end the war on their own, but they were the spark that decisively hastened its end. Conclusion 9:30 Today, more than 80 years later, the beaches of Normandy remain peaceful. But beneath its sands lies an unforgettable story of courage and sacrifice. The thousands of young men who landed on those beaches were not seeking glory, but rather a freer world. The Normandy landings were more than just a military operation. They were a moment that proved that cooperation between nations, and human will, can change the course of history. And every year, people stand on those beaches to remember that freedom did not come easily. There was a cost. And there were heroes. And this is the legacy of June 6, 1944. Send feedback.